Right. What's up, everybody? As promised, here's your recorded lecture for today, whatever today is for you. It's supposed to be for Friday's lecture. So here we are. A couple of quick things before we get going for today's. Try to keep it like a normal lecture. You should be aware that exam 3 is coming up. If you're watching this on Friday, then you're a week away from exam number 3. Um, I meant to put in here as well that I'm going to hold a review session. I've been telling you guys in lecture, but my review session will be on Tuesday evening. Tuesday evening, let's say 7 o'clock. So Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock. I'll send an email out about this as well, so you don't have to, try to write this down really quick. Wiley number 3 is due. We all know when it's due. Don't forget your Wiley assignment number 3 coincides with exam number 3 and quiz number 6. We've been talking about it, been giving you lots of announcements. You should know what's on it. Quiz number 6 is coming up on Monday, so likely Monday, Tuesday. Just leave it open for a couple of days. Hey, we've been in cardiovascular system for a little bit now. Let me get everything going here with the pen and all that good kind of stuff. Been in cardiovascular. We've been doing a lot with the heart. Make sure you're good. Ventricular diastole, ventricular systole, your whole table that we built out, what all's happening, blood pressure stuff, all that good kind of stuff. When you come back in on Monday, when, not if, when you all come back in on Monday, and we come back and we pick back up on lymphatic and cover respiratory, we'll do a lot of review on Monday and on Wednesday to make sure you're prepared for Friday's exam. But picking up where we left off, we got to blood vessels, right? Blood vessels as a whole. And we should all now be good with our definition of arteries. And note that arteries, the proper definition does not include anything about oxygenated or deoxygenated blood. What blood vessel violates that rule, or what two blood vessels specifically? Hopefully you're thinking about the pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein. So arteries, our proper definition, arteries are always carrying blood away from the heart, right? Think about that pulmonary artery. It's taking it from the right ventricle and it's carrying it off to the lungs. Think about your aorta from the left ventricle out to the whole body. They're always carrying blood away from the heart. When we left off, we got to several of these, and capillaries, I jumped straight down to capillaries when I covered it the first time because I think we're good there. We're good with what arteries are for the most part. We're good with capillaries, smallest diameter blood vessel. These are the blood vessels of exchange. So where we're going to exchange mostly gases, but other things as well. We can't take a huge artery and an itty bitty capillary and combine those two. We can't do it. There's too much blood flowing through arteries. We need it to get down to a really small size for capillaries. So that's where arterioles come into place. Arterioles are just these moderate sized, if you want to go with something like that. They receive blood from arteries. They pare it down into smaller diameter blood vessels, and then they pass to capillaries. They're in between arteries and capillaries. And on the other side, we've got the exact same thing going on. Now look, I'm gonna jump in on this whole red versus blue thing and highlight venules in blue. And you know that veins are coming next, and we should know our proper definition of a vein is that it's always carrying blood back to the heart. Even though I'm doing these in blue, like we're assuming that they're always carrying deoxygenated blood, they're not always carrying deoxygenated because, again, that pulmonary vein is carrying oxygenated blood. Where is it carrying it? Back to the heart. That's why it's called a vein, right? That's why it's called a vein. They're carrying blood back to the heart. And same thing, if we got a tiny little capillary and a really big vein like your vena cava, we cannot connect those two. We need venules. Venules receive from capillaries, pass blood onto veins, right? So arterioles and venules, make sure you're good with those two. Those are probably the only two on this list you are less familiar with. Let's focus in on capillaries just for a brief moment here. Again, as we talked about already, they are the smallest of your blood vessels, right? We just saw that. We're trying to go from large arteries, arterioles, tiny capillaries, back up to our venules, back up to large veins. So capillaries are the smallest of all of those. Really, really thin wall, which allows them to perform exchange, gas exchange, or exchange of other things. Now, look, that's all I'm looking for. Capillaries, smallest diameter blood vessels. the site of exchange. This is where we're going to perform exchange. That's all we're really looking for here. It's all you really need to know. However, when you get to physiology, you're going to go into your different types of capillaries. And if you look over here on the right, my right of the screen here, some of your capillaries are continuous, which you probably assumed all of them were. Continuous means there's no breaks, there's no openings, there's nothing like that. But in different parts of our body, we can put these fenestrated, the middle one here, or these really crazy capillaries like these down here, these sinusoid. And it looks like, I mean, it looks like Swiss cheese, right? Like there's just huge gaps and holes everywhere. None of the holes, none of these openings, these sinuses, is what they're called here, are large enough for red blood cells to fit through. White blood cells, platelets, right? Well, those aren't escaping. Big proteins, glucose molecules, those can't escape. But everything else, right, can just move back and forth across. And we're going to see those in places like the kidney. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But for now, capillaries, right? The smallest of your blood vessels, the site of gas exchange. All right, venous blood flow. Venous blood flow. This one, I get it. Like it's a little bit weird. It's a little deceiving here. Let's just go over and make sure that we're all good. This is oxygenated blood leaving your aorta, coming from the left ventricle. It's red. It's got all of this oxygenated blood, and we're going here to your gastroc, right? And when we get to your gastroc and you're in the gym, and you're doing your calf raises, you're getting oxygen and nutrients and all those things to that gastroc. Now, if I was to ask you, how did that blood make its way all the way down to your gastrocnemius, your calf muscle, right? How did we get all that oxygen and all that blood to it? It's pretty obvious. You were like, oh, yeah, ventricular systole. You probably just said the heart pumps it or whatever. And maybe you said the left side of the heart pumps it out. And all those things are right, right? We get ventricular systole, specifically in the left ventricle, and that blood goes rushing out. And this is the systemic circuit, right? It's rushing down the systemic circuit. How did it get here? It's primarily the heart and some gravity, right? I mean, that blood's going to make its way down. But now I switch over to blue here and say we use up all of that blood here. And now we want to get that blood all the way back up to the heart. How do we do that? And this is where a lot of people are just like, well, same. The heart, ventricular systole. Like if the heart pumps and we can pump it out, then doesn't the heart pump and get it back? And the answer is no. You can see, obviously, here has been on the screen the entire time. We do not get venous blood flow back to our heart via pumping action of the heart. It's not that strong. It's impressive, right? Think of all the things we've covered and what it's done for us and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully you're like, yeah, heart's impressive. I agree. It's really, really cool. But it's not that good. It's not enough pressure to get all of the blood back to the heart. So how do we get venous blood flow back to our heart? Primarily skeletal muscle contraction. And that's what it's trying to show you here in this picture that I just colored all over, right? There's two things really going on here, but the big one I want you to focus in on, how do we get blood back to our heart? It's us moving around, venous blood flow. That is huge. Now, let me just cover really quick. Number two, the other big way in which we can get this back is here, breathing. So skeletal muscle contraction is your primary force. Breathing is going to be your second major force, and that's primarily deep breathing. When we go, you cannot begin to understand how important that is for you. Do another one, right? While you're sitting there, just, and not only is it really good for your nervous system and for toning things down, it's good for your heart, it's good for all these things. It also now, when we do those really deep breaths, it also squeezes and compresses all these blood vessels through our thoracic and a little bit through our abdominal region, and it helps squeeze and force a lot of blood back towards or into the vena cava and the heart. Skeletal muscle contraction, breathing. Those are two big forces that move venous blood flow back to your heart. I'm going to add on here a little teaser. It's going to come at you a little bit later today because this lecture is going to cover cardiovascular and lymphatic. So we're just going to do the first part of lymphatic. It's also how we get lymph back. Venous blood flow and lymph both flow back to the heart primarily by skeletal muscle contraction and breathing. Now, let's sit with this one for just a brief moment. Couple of things. Okay, I get this idea. I'm in the SRC, I'm doing calf raises, right? I'm working those gastroc. Well, when I constrict the gastroc, you can see on either side, right? Or a tibialis anterior and gastroc, I create this compression. And it's like squeezing this vessel and that runs fluid up. I think we're all good with that, right? But why doesn't the fluid just run right back down? Well, that's where these really cool valves come into place. And it's probably hard to see here, but when any blood tries to go back this direction, you get these structures built in. And they're trying to show you one right over here. These valves. Blood cannot go back down the vein. It can go a short distance, but it's eventually going to encounter a vein that's really similar to what other type of valve? Remember from the heart, if any blood wants to turn around out of the aorta and go back into the left ventricle, boop, aortic semilunar valve. If any blood from your pulmonary circuit wants to go back down into your right ventricle, boop, same idea here, right? Just like the pulmonary semilunar valve we're talking about there. They do the same thing. Now there's not near as much blood, it's not near as much force, so you're not going to get a sound out of these things because there's so many of them catching small amounts of blood. But you get the idea, the blood can only go one direction. It can't turn around and come back because of these valves. So that may be, some people were like, oh, okay, that was what I was thinking. Some of you are like, I just wish you were done, is what I was thinking. But there was another group of people who might be like, whoa, whoa. So if the only real way, the primary force to getting venous blood back to our heart, which is a critical part of our cardiovascular system, which is to ensure normal cardiovascular health, to make sure that we're functioning properly, to make sure we're not getting, say, heart disease, that means we have to move our skeletal muscles. And you are exactly right. You're 100% right. Why is sitting the new smoking? If you haven't heard that phrase, it is. Now, you guys are bringing smoking back for some bizarre reason. Your generation we're seeing smoking on the uptick. It's been going down and down and down and down. And we all assumed smoking would just completely go away because we saw it. You guys have not seen it. You have not seen how grotesque smoking is, how addictive it is. We did. And so smoking went away really for us. It was such a massive, massive health pandemic to generations prior to mine, that we don't touch that stuff. It is absolutely horrible. And so it's going away. But now sitting, our sedentary lifestyle, the fact that most of us are going to take jobs that require us to sit for most of the day, that is the new health pandemic. It's replaced smoking as the leading cause of death. Now, not directly, but clearly indirectly. It is leading to heart disease. It's leading to higher blood pressure. Now you know why. If you sit all day long, you aren't moving your legs, your blood pulls up. You don't have a lot of things. Your heart is having to work really hard. You don't have this normal circulatory function you should have. We need skeletal muscle contraction. If you would end up taking a job, well, you're students now and you sit all the time. If you are sitting for long periods of time, every 20 minutes is the recommendation. You stand up, you move your legs, you do a couple of stretches, whatever it is, you walk around, then you go and sit back down every 20 minutes. We don't do that. No one does that, right? But that's the recommendation from heart specialists. Skeletal muscle contraction and then breathing, especially those big, heavy, deep breaths. That's how we're getting venous blood flow back to the heart. And lymph as well, as we'll talk about in a brief moment. Now, when we started this whole thing, we said functions of the cardiovascular system. It does this and this. The second function we listed was it keeps our blood separated. And that's where we went in. We talked about two different circuits. Blood leaves the right side of the heart and it goes on the what circuit? Pulmonary circuit, right? Back to the left atrium. Blood leaves the left ventricle and it goes out to the whole body on the systemic circuit. And then it comes back to the right atrium. Pulmonary circuit, heart, systemic circuit, heart, over and over and over again. So two major circuits. However, we're going to add a third one here. It's not a true circuit like the others are. I'll show you what I mean and what we're talking about here. But this is going to be your coronary circuit, or what's known as coronary circulation. Now, if I was to ask you, say, hey, look, what's the heart primarily made up of? What's the thickest layer? Hopefully you'd be like, it's cardiac muscle. It's the myocardium, right? It's this huge layer. What does muscle need to work? And we could go through the list about, well, it needs oxygen, it needs water, it needs that ATP, glucose to, all the different things. It needs waste products carried away. It needs, CO2 carried away, all this different kind of stuff. So it needs circulation. It needs the same thing that all of our other tissues and organs need. Okay, follow-up question to that is, where does it get it from? And it's a weird question because I think most of us just sitting in class would be like, well, dude, it holds all the blood. Like its job is to catch all this oxygenated nutrient, ATP rich blood and send it out. So it just grabs it, right? Like it just takes what it needs off the blood it's circulating. And intuitively that definitely makes sense. So like you would think that's how it works. But what are the only blood vessels that can perform exchange? Let's say of just gases here. Clearly it's capillaries. I want you to think for a moment of how violent the heart really is. When it's contracted, it's this huge boom, it pumps. It's just this massive collision of walls of the heart. We got to get blood all the way out to the bottom of our feet, the top of our head, the ends of our fingers. Huge pumping force. Do you think for a second that your heart's slowing things down? Like, hold on a second, can I get two of those? Can I get a little bit of that oxygen here? Will you take a little bit of that? There's no way. How does gas and these small things like water move? Well, simple diffusion, osmosis. We need them to boop, step across, right? They need to go from intracellular to extracellular to intracellular. They need to move across these cell membranes and this blood is just rushing and it's mixing and it's flying all over the place. We cannot perform gas exchange. We cannot perform any form of true exchange here inside the heart. It's wild, the concept of even trying to do that. So how do we do it then? It's really, really interesting. I'm going to jump right ahead. We've been on this one for a little bit. This one kind of shares the same type of thing, but it really gets here. Now, I'm going to put right over here, I'm going to highlight this, your LV, right? Your left ventricle. We should all be good here. I'm doing this in red. When we leave the left ventricle, I think we're all good with this. We are heading out of the heart. And on our way out the heart, what's the primary blood vessel that's going to get all of that blood out to the body? Clearly, that's your aorta. It's going to go from the left ventricle, boom, systole, huge systole, rush all of that blood out. It goes out through the aorta. But all that blood, we talked about this oxygen, ATP rich, water rich, all that kind of stuff. It's getting all those things out there. Yeah, it's true. The vast majority of the blood is going out on the systemic circuit. But right here and right here, those two locations right off the aorta, some of the first blood on its way to the systemic circuit will come out of the aorta and go boop, one left, one right. And those are what are known as your right and left coronary arteries. Sorry, the pen, it's really hard to do with the mouse, but you get the idea. Left and right coronary arteries. They're right at the base of the aorta. So some of the very first blood leaving the heart doesn't actually go out to the systemic circuit. We're talking like 99.9% of the blood leaving the heart goes out on the systemic circuit. But a little bit of it goes right out to the left and right coronary arteries, right off the aorta, right off to those little arteries. And then those immediately take oxygen, nutrient, water-rich blood, all that good kind of stuff, takes it and supplies your two atria, your two ventricles, the myocardium. It fuels heart muscle so that it can keep pumping. And it should make sense, right? That's the only way we're going to be able to supply the myocardium, this heart muscle, is to get it down from this huge chamber with tons of blood into really the biggest artery we have, the aorta. We've got to get it out of those. We got to get it down to capillaries if we want to exchange. So how do we do that? We get it out of the aorta to smaller arteries, then it goes to arterioles, then it goes to capillaries, and we supply the myocardium. Then that blood is going to come right back, and I'll switch it over to blue here just to kind of help us out a little bit. Blue, we go right into the coronary sinus and right back into the right atrium. So a couple of vessels you need to know here: left and right coronary arteries and coronary sinus. And then we're right back into the right atrium. It's the shortest circuit of all. You thought the pulmonary was easy compared to the systemic, right? Pulmonary is just right ventricle out to the lungs, right? Pulmonary artery, lungs, pulmonary veins, back to the left atrium, done with that circuit. This one's right out of the heart, right into left and right coronary arteries. Supply the heart itself, come back in the coronary sinus, boom, right back into the right atrium. Really quick circuit, but It's the coronary circuit, right? So really there's three circuits here. Pulmonary and systemic, we've been talking about a lot. Coronary circuit, it supplies blood to the myocardium, to the heart itself, and nourishes the heart, then comes right back into the heart itself as well, right back into one of your chambers, your right atrium. So make sure you're good. You make sure you're good. And this is one that some of you guys are really going to talk about a lot through your career. If you go into any form of medical career or anything like that, this is one of your arteries you cannot block. You cannot have major blockage. You cannot have, whatever cholesterol buildup and any type of things going on with this one. If you block this one even for a moment, that's it. This is, some people refer to this as the widowmaker, these two arteries, those left and right coronary arteries. You stop one of them, you stop blood flow, you stop oxygen, you stop all these things go into the myocardium, it seizes up, your heart stops. That's it. So left and right coronary artery, really, really important blood vessels to know. All right, so all these last slides are going to do is just kind of recap. Like so far, you may be thinking like, oh my God, there's so much on the heart we have to know. There truly really isn't, right? You should know four chambers. You should know four valves. You know those from lab. We just added them into lecture as well. It's the blood vessels where some people are like, oh, can you just recap for me? Can you give me? Absolutely. Here's your major arteries that we covered. The aorta or the aortic arch, right? Know what it is. Know it's coming off that left ventricle, carrying oxygen-rich blood. Your left and right pulmonary veins, right? Left and right pulmonary veins. Now I'm covering these into arteries. I should have made this box smaller. These, right? And these arteries versus veins. You're gonna have to know both of them, but we're covering arteries here. Um, there's your pulmonary artery again, and then your right and left coronary. So for arteries, that's really it. It's aorta, pulmonary, coronary. Aorta, pulmonary, coronary, right? And we go to veins, it's really kind of the same thing. Instead of aorta, you ought to know it by now. It's going to be your vena cava. We'll start there. Vena cava, then pulmonary, coronary, right? There's your vessels you need to know. They're actually pretty simple. Aorta, coronary, pulmonary. Did those in different order. And then vena cava, coronary, pulmonary. And then we just added in this other one, the coronary sinus, as far as your veins go. So make sure you're good on those, but those are your blood vessels. And this is the one, right? There's a reason why I've been using this one over and over again. This one has pretty much everything, I think. Maybe catch me if I'm wrong, but this is everything that we've covered. There's your four, everything we've covered is in red anyway, right? So the red letters here represent what we did. So the aortic arch, four chambers, four valves, right? Your pulmonary arteries versus veins. It's all there. Trust me on that one. There's your chordae tendineae and your papillary muscles. We talked about those as well. So it's a good one. If it's in red, you're responsible for it, right? Okay, that is the cardiovascular system. Let me discard those things. Let me switch right over here to your lymphatic system, and then we are going to jump right back in. This is going to switch these two. Give me just a brief second. There we go. All right, so we are into the lymphatic system. Look, I get it. It's a weird system that a lot of us weren't familiar with prior to this class. We've covered it once before, but we're going to go into it in more detail. Let's go. Overview or functions of the lymphatic system, right? Functions of the lymphatic system is where we start with all the other things. Let's do the same thing here. If you remember, we've only done this once so far. We did it at the very beginning of the semester when we covered all 11 organ systems all at once and said, know your 11 organ systems, know two or three organs, and know its function. And if you remember back to that, you're responsible for this again. What are these different functions? Oh, let me just get out of here again. One more time. Sorry for that. And let me try it one more time because when it comes up, with the screen at the bottom, I can't use the pen near as well, and it's going to do that. Okay, so I'll do my best to be able to write on this. So we'll just do it with the pen and try our dangdest. Dangdest? I'm going with that. Okay, there you go. That was nice. So lymphatic system. As we mentioned before, the primary objective, the primary function here is going to be, oh, it's going to get old, isn't it? You guys are going to get tired of this. It is going to be maintaining normal blood volume. How do we do that? Well, we do that primarily, and it goes away as soon as I do that. No more drawing. We'll just go with what we've got. Maintaining normal blood volume. Now, let's go back. Let's go all the way back because we're going to talk about several different things. Let's start with cardiovascular. We just finished it. What's its job? What is its function? What is it doing? Well, we take the heart, we contract it, systole, right? And we get blood out to the body. And so it's going to transport oxygen for us, waste products for us, hormones, all the things, solutes, all the things we've been talking about for a while. Brings it back to the heart, pumps it out, goes get oxygen, right? That's what it's doing. Now, if you remember, what are we pumping out? The chapter right before it, when your heart pumps it out, what are we pumping out? And there's a lot of people who are just going, blood, you idiot. And that's fine. I am an idiot a lot of the time. So you're right. What is blood? Well, it's primarily two components, right? Blood plasma and all those formed elements that were red blood cells that are going to carry the oxygen. White blood cells are going to protect us. Platelets are going to, right? All these different types of what's in that blood plasma. It's mostly water, right? So it's those different things. Now let's go back really quick, all the way back to unit 1. I said there were 3 primary extracellular fluids. There were 3 primary extracellular fluids. And truly, they're all the same fluid. The heart pumps, and it pumps out blood and blood plasma, right? So blood plasma gets pumped out. Where is that going? Well, we're trying to get those things to our tissues. Well, when we get to the tissues, and the fluid, some of the fluid leaves our bloodstream and goes into our tissues, what does that fluid become? It's been a little while, hasn't it? But if you'll remember, it was interstitial fluid, between the tissue fluid. That's just fluid that's escaped the bloodstream and it's out in your tissues. It's in your muscles. It's around your joints, right? We know this. We've talked about it several different times. Well, that fluid leaves the cardiovascular system. It goes out into the body. And when it comes back, we're down on fluid. We've lost some. We started with this much and we lost some of the fluid by the time the blood came back. Well, if we keep doing that, we're eventually going to lose all the fluid in our blood and our heart's going to go into massive heart failure and the blood gets too thick and something has to give. This is the organ system that's going to maintain that. It's going to go out and find the excess fluid in our tissues, interstitial fluid, clean it up and bring it back and put it in the cardiovascular system. That's why we're listing this as our number 1 function, our primary function. Taking excess fluid that escaped out into our tissues, bringing it back into our cardiovascular system. Now, along the way, we're going to do some other really important things, right? We're going to have all those lymphocytes. They're called lymphocytes for a reason, by the way. Now, if you haven't made this connection yet, lymphocytes were type number 2, the second most common white blood cell. We said there were 2 of them, T and B lymphocytes. They're called lymphocytes based on this system. They're going to play a really big role in your lymphatic system. So lymphocytes, lymphatic system, put those 2 together. We're going to talk about them. And then look, since we're picking up excess fluid and we're cleaning it up and we're moving it around, we can actually pick up some of those other things with it, hormones, waste products, right? And those other things the cardiovascular system's carrying for the most part, lymphatic system can do the same thing. So it's kind of an alternative transport system that'll help us get hormones where they need to go, nutrients where they need to go. So we can kind of play a little bit of a role of the cardiovascular system with this lymphatic system. But function number 1 is the big one here. So the lymphatic system, if I could draw, I would be underlining and circling interstitial fluid. It's picking up interstitial fluid out in your tissues, and it's trying to put it back into your bloodstream. We said that's the primary function, and that's what we're going to keep focusing on here. Where does it do it? What tissues? What part of the body? Check out the picture to the right. Everything in green is part of your lymphatic system. And if a blood vessel goes to a certain location, a lymphatic vessel is going there too. Not as many, not as widespread or whatever it is, but it's true. If you're going to run blood vessels all the way to your big toe, check out the big toe. It's all the way down there. It's got a lymphatic vessel down there with it. We have to, because your cardiovascular dumps off more fluid than it needs to, than we can really sustain. So if your cardiovascular system goes there and drops fluid, we need a system to go pick up that excess fluid and bring it back. And that's what your lymphatic system is going to do. It carries it via lymphatic vessels, right? Oftentimes referred to as just your lymphatics. but your lymphatics are your lymphatic vessels. They're the vessels similar to arteries and veins. Really, go back, similar to veins, right? Your lymphatic vessels are much more similar to veins. They're picking up fluid and bringing it back to the heart. So they're designed a lot in the same ways as these. 3 liters. 3 liters isn't a small job. This isn't just like, oh yeah, you got a little bit of extra fluid. 3 liters is pretty wild. I mean, these two right here are about 1 liter. So we're talking like 6 of these things in a day. That's pretty impressive, right? That's really impressive. A lot of fluid, a lot of fluid. And here's the big one. Here's the kicker. And if I could circle, I would be going around this word lymph. Fluid contained within blood vessels. Fluid being pumped out by the heart, I think we're all good, is called blood and blood plasma, right? And it gets pumped out. When it escapes those blood vessels and it goes into our tissues, interstitial fluid. But as soon as we pick it up and we bring it into the lymphatic system, as soon as we take it out of the tissues, as soon as it enters a lymphatic vessel, it gets a new name called lymph. And if you don't believe me, go back. We did talk about it all the way back to Unit 1, Chapter 2 in cells. When we were talking about extracellular, intracellular, we talked about there were 3 primary extracellular fluids. And these are the fluids you guys are going to be treating the rest of your life. Most of you. Some of you are like, well, I'm not going to be a doctor though. So like, I'm not going to be, yeah, you're like, you PT, great. You're going to be dealing with interstitial fluid and fluid tissue buildup and soreness and whatever it is. AT, same. OT, PT, all the T's, right? All of you guys, if you're going to a health related field, you're going to be dealing with 3 extracellular fluids, treating blood and blood plasma, dealing with that interstitial fluid that's escaped and trying to get it out of those areas, especially areas that have become inflamed and swollen and all that kind of stuff. And then your lymphatics, your lymphatic system, the same fluid coming back and starting over again as blood. So get those 3 terms down. Know the difference between interstitial fluid and lymph. And there's really not a big difference in terms of the fluid. It's just its location. It's its location. And make sure you're good on that because I'm giving you that question. Actually, on Monday's quiz, I'm giving you that question for sure on exam number 3. So make sure you're good on those. So how do we get it back? How do we get it back? Well, lymphatic vessels offer this system. It's a one-way system. This is not your circulatory. Please don't confuse the two. There's no pump. Lymphatic system does not have a pump like your cardiovascular. So it doesn't go out. It doesn't leave somewhere. It's one way. We pick it up way out. I can't get my arm in the screen. Way out here in the body. And then we just move that lymph all the way back to your heart again. And then it waits and it goes back out and it finds the excess and it pulls it all the way back in and puts it back in your heart. Just one-way system, never going out. We move it through lymphatic vessels, lymphatic capillaries, right? And that fluid is going to be referred to as lymph. The interstitial fluid we picked up that we're cleaning with lymphocytes, that we're cleaning with macrophages, 2 different types of white blood cells there, right? Both of them present here. And along the way, we're going to treat that fluid. We're going to clean that fluid with some of these primary organs. Now, I don't care about if I had the pin go in here, I would cross out primary and secondary. I'm not going to ask you to differentiate, right? But I want you to know what are the organs of the lymphatic system. We're going to talk about the role of bone marrow. We're going to talk about the thymus. In fact, those 2 are really big because remember your 2 types of lymphocytes? There were 2 letters, T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. There's your T and your B. That's where they come from. T lymphocytes go to the thymus and mature there. B lymphocytes stay in the bone marrow and they mature there, right? And they perform 2 separate functions. But so we're going to talk about those 2 and your immune system, your adaptive immune system. Lymph nodes, huge one, right? And most plentiful, right? And all of those. We'll talk about the spleen, we'll talk about the tonsils. So we're going to run through each one of those organs in this chapter. Just know that those represent organs of the lymphatic system. Okay. So 2 more slides here and we're done. The flow of lymph. How do we get lymph back? Well, again, it's just one way. So we're not going to start with arteries and then go to arterioles and then get to capillaries. We just start at the capillary stage. Should make sense. They're the vessels of exchange. And it's true in the lymphatic system. The only vessel in your lymphatic system that can draw things in are your capillaries. So capillaries is where we start. We pull fluid in the capillaries. Then we pass it to an afferent lymphatic vessel. Ooh, that's really good, right? I would be highlighting this if I had my pen going. I'd be like, afferent, where have we seen that before? Well, your afferent nerve fibers, your afferent, your sensory system of your nervous system. And when I was in class, I was doing the same thing. I'm like, hey, look, this is afferent. You touch something hot, afferent message. That means it's going towards. Same thing's true here. That's what afferent means. It's going into something or towards something. What are we going towards? We go from there right into a lymph node. So it goes capillary into a larger afferent vessel, then we're in a lymph node. This is where we're going to see later, we're going to clean that fluid up. And then guess what? We go right out of it, efferent. Just like your nervous system was sensory in, afferent, and then motor out, efferent. That's what we've got going on here. Fluid going into a lymph node, afferent, cleans it in the lymph node, going out of the lymph node, efferent. Then we go to lymphatic trunks, of which there are 5 major ones, usually right around the thoracic region, and then 2 big ducts. And then it's not on the screen here. This is usually if I'm in lecture here, I would put a number, sorry, I'd put a number 7 here, and then to go ahead and remind you right back into the heart, right back into the vena cava. You can see right up here, right? So heart or vena cava or cardiovascular system, totally fine. That's the full pathway. You pick it up in capillaries way out in your body, excess fluid. You're going to run it back to the heart. That's the goal. That's the objective. Along the way, you're just going to clean it up in lymph nodes. So you run it into a lymph node, afferent, clean it up, run it out of a lymph node, efferent, into a trunk, into a duct, and then you're right back into your cardiovascular system. You're back into the vena cava, the right atrium, and we can now clean fluid go right back through and keep the system going, right? So it maintains that normal blood volume and normal healthy heart functioning. How do we transport it? I started with this earlier. We talked about this already. It's going to be the exact same thing. Now, look, there's several things listed here, and those things are true, right? Or move along. But if I had my pen, I'm just highlighting 2 things: skeletal muscle contraction and breathing. Skeletal muscle contraction, breathing. How do we get venous blood flow back from our legs and feet back to our heart? We've got to get up and move around. We've got to quit sitting for so long. Stand up, move around, move your skeletal muscle contractions. That's the primary driver to get venous blood back. It's also the primary driver to get lymph back. Treat these 2 systems virtually the same, right? What's the other thing? We breathe. Normal breathing, but when we do those big pressure breaths, squeeze lots of veins, and we get venous blood back into the heart. We also are squeezing lots of lymphatic vessels, efferent vessels, trunks, right? Squeezing those things down and getting lymph back into the bloodstream. And then the second that lymph goes from a trunk to a duct into the vena cava, what is it called now? It's blood again. It's blood again, right? It's plasma, probably more specifically, right? Instead of the formed elements, it's plasma. It's blood. Then it gets pumped out. And when it gets to the tissues, it leaks out. And blood plasma becomes interstitial fluid. And then your lymphatic system goes, that's fine, we got it, we got it. And they go pick up that interstitial fluid. And the second the interstitial fluid gets into your lymphatic vessels, it's lymph. Your 3 big your 3 big extracellular fluids: plasma, lymph, interstitial fluid, right? Should say plasma, interstitial, lymph, because that's the order that it's going to go. And then it starts right back over again. How do we get venous blood and lymph back up into the heart? Skeletal muscle contraction, breathing. Those are your big 2. Look for that question. All right, that's far enough for today. When we get back on Monday in person, we'll finish up the lymphatic system, and then that's when we'll go through the organs. Lymph nodes, some bone marrow stuff, thymus, tonsils, and spleen, right? And then we're done with lymphatic system, on into the respiratory system. So that's it for me today. Go have a good weekend. Do your thing. Whenever you're watching this, don't forget about Monday's quiz, exam on Friday, 14th. That's all I got for you guys. Hope you have a great afternoon. See ya.